They act fine. You'd never guess what's really going on behind their calm. They laugh in public. They post as if life is moving forward. They say, "I'm good," with the same practiced smile. And maybe, for a second, you almost believe them. But it's a lie. A quiet, practiced, heartbreaking lie. Because what they don't show is that losing you broke something inside them. Something they can't name. Something they'll never admit. And the tragedy? They'll spend months, maybe years, trying to convince everyone, including themselves, that they're okay. But the truth will keep whispering. Beneath the noise, beneath the laughter, beneath every night they can't fall asleep. You were never just someone they loved. You were an anchor. You were the pulse that reminded them they were alive. And now that you're gone, they walk through their days like they're in a dream, present, but not really there. They act fine because they have to. Because if they stop pretending for even a second, the silence will hit them like a wave. And they're not ready for that. Not yet. They've learned the art of normalcy, the small talk, the laughter at the right times, the routine that looks just like moving on. But underneath, there's a hollow space that nothing fills. They go to work. They see friends. They stay busy. But when the world quiets, your name slips through the cracks. Everywhere they go, they see small reminders of you. A street you once walked, a song you used to hum, a smell that hits them, like a memory they didn't ask for. They tell themselves, it's just a thought. But it's never just a thought. It's the echo of something unfinished. See, they don't cry in public. They don't talk about it anymore. They've reached the stage where people stop asking, and that's when it really starts to hurt. Because the world has moved on. But they haven't. Their mind says, you're fine. Their body says, you're lying. Because healing doesn't happen by pretending it doesn't hurt. It happens by letting it. And they can't let it yet. They tell themselves they're stronger now, that they've grown, that they're better off. But they know the truth. Strength wasn't a choice. It was a survival instinct. They didn't choose to heal. They were forced to. Because what else do you do when the person who understood your soul suddenly becomes a memory? They act fine, but every time they smile, their heart flinches because you're still there, not in front of them, but in everything around them. They used to message you first thing in the morning. Now they wake up, reach for their phone, and stop themselves mid-motion. That moment, that pause, is grief. They don't cry over it anymore. But the ache is still there, just quieter, heavier. They scroll through their day, looking functional, but every second feels slightly out of sync, like they're watching their life from the outside and wondering when it'll start to feel like their own again. People around them say, "You seem happier lately," and they smile politely because what they feel isn't happiness. It's numbness, the absence of pain, not the presence of peace. There's a difference, and they feel it in their bones. They're not healed. They've just learned how to hide the bleeding. They tell themselves, "You didn't mean as much as you did. That time will erase you, that they'll meet someone else, and this will all fade." But love like that doesn't fade. It settles. It finds a corner inside you, sets up camp, and stays. You're not gone from them. You've just changed shape. Now you live in their mannerisms, their thoughts, their fears. They'll be talking about something completely unrelated. And suddenly, your laugh echoes in their memory. That's how deep you went. That's what they mean. When they say losing you broke something, they try to explain it to themselves. Maybe it just wasn't meant to be. Maybe it's for the best. Maybe we outgrew each other. But the human heart doesn't heal on logic. It heals on closure. And they never got that. You left questions that time can't answer. You left silence where truth should have been. So now they replay every moment. looking for reasons that might make it hurt less. But love rarely gives reasons, only memories. And those, they have plenty of. They avoid the places you used to go together. They skip the songs you loved. They mute your stories. But avoidance is its own kind of obsession. Because the more they try to erase you, the more you show up in the blank spaces. You became a ghost in their routine, not haunting them, reminding them, reminding them of what it felt like to be seen that deeply, to be known without having to explain. And now that it's gone, every connection after you feels shallow, not because those people aren't good enough, but because they're not you. They've dated again, tried to start fresh, but something's missing. They can't name it, but it's there. That absence, that dull ache, that impossible standard you unknowingly set. They'll compare the feeling, the energy, the way conversation used to flow, and nothing fits. Nothing clicks the same way. Because you weren't just a person. You were a frequency, a specific vibration that matched theirs perfectly. And now, everything else sounds slightly off-key. They don't talk about you anymore. Not because they don't want to, but because they don't know how to. Without breaking. They've tried. They've opened up once or twice, said your name in a quiet tone. But the moment they do, their voice cracks. So now, they keep it all inside. They smile when they hear your name. They act indifferent. But their silence isn't peace. It's self-preservation. Because speaking of you still feels like reopening a wound that never truly closed. Sometimes they'll check your profile. Not often. Just enough to remember. They'll see you laughing, looking happy, alive, and they'll smile. Genuinely. But inside, something twists. Because they're glad you're doing well. But it also hurts that you're doing well without them. There's no resentment, just that quiet grief of realizing they're no longer the reason behind your smile. That's the kind of pain you can't show anyone. So they don't. They act fine. You might think they've forgotten you. You might think they've moved on. But love doesn't disappear. It transforms into lessons, into shadows, into echoes. And those echoes are everywhere. In the way they pause before opening up to someone new. In the way they overthink texts. In the way they pull back when someone gets too close. They don't mean to. It's just muscle memory. Because their heart learned that closeness can end in absence. Sometimes, late at night, they'll remember something small. Your laugh, a phrase you always said, the way your eyes softened when you looked at them. And for a second, it feels like you're still there. But when the memory fades, so does the warmth. And they're left in the same silence you left them with. Only now, they know how to survive it. They've built a life around pretending it doesn't hurt. That's what fine really means. It means functioning while fractured. They act fine, but deep down, they're not the same person you once knew. Losing you changed them, not in the dramatic way movies show, but in quiet ways that don't make headlines. They stopped expecting people to stay, stopped believing in forever, started holding themselves differently, a little guarded, a little distant, a little colder, not because they want to be, but because loving you taught them how much it hurts to lose something real, and they promised themselves they'd never let it happen like that again. So now, they act fine. They show up. They smile. They laugh. They live. But you'll always be the memory that shaped their silence, the ache that never left, the love that never fully ended. Because losing you didn't just break their heart, it broke the part of them that believed love could be simple. And though they'll never say it, they miss you every day, in every quiet way possible. They act fine, but if you looked closely, you'd see it. The flicker, the hesitation, the ghosts in their eyes. Proof that something in them is still trying to heal from the moment they lost you. They didn't realize how much of themselves they had built around you until you were gone. Your presence wasn't just company, it was context. And when you left, the meaning went with you. Now, every part of their life feels slightly rewritten. Their habits, their tone, their way of seeing the world. You changed all of it without meaning to. They wake up now in a quieter world, not silent, just muted. Even laughter feels different, lighter but emptier, like it's bouncing off walls. Instead of souls, they still find joy in moments. They still smile, but it never lands the way it used to. Because joy to them used to look like your eyes, lighting up at something small, used to sound like the soft exhale of two people who finally felt safe. And now that's gone. They used to text without thinking. Now every message they send feels overanalyzed. They reread their words. They second guess their tone. They hesitate to share what's real because you taught them something painful, that even the most honest connection can vanish without explanation. So they've learned to say less, to reveal less, to protect the parts that once belonged to you. It's not that they stopped believing in love. They just stopped believing it lasts. Because when love left with you, something inside them decided not to fully trust it again. Now, every time they start to care about someone new, they hold back, not because they don't feel, but because they feel too much. And too much love now feels like danger. They tell themselves, I'm stronger now. And in some ways, they are. They've learned to stand alone, to survive the ache without breaking apart, to keep breathing, even when everything inside them whispers, don't. But this strength came at a cost, because in learning to survive without you, they also learned how to live without softness. They've become careful, measured, unreachable in small, invisible ways. And the world claps for that, calls it independence, calls it resilience. But deep down, they know it's something else. It's self-protection disguised as healing. They've rewritten their boundaries, built walls where open doors used to be. People still see them smile, but no one really gets in. Because when they loved you, they gave themselves away completely. Every thought, every fear, every dream. And when you left, it felt like pieces of them left too. So now, when someone tries to get close, they hesitate. They think of you, of how easy it was to open their soul once, and how hard it is now. You didn't just break their heart, you rewired their nervous system. Their body still reacts to your absence, like it's danger. Their chest tightens at reminders of your name. Their breath quickens at the idea of falling again. It's not dramatic. It's biology. It's the human body, learning that love equals loss. And that's what you left them with. A memory coded in emotion, an invisible bruise that still throbs in the right kind of silence. They scroll past your profile sometimes, and their stomach drops, not because they want you back, but because the sight of you feels like touching a scar that's still tender. You look happy, lighter, freer, and they're genuinely glad. But there's a part of them that wonders if you ever think of them too. Because they do. Not every day, but in the quiet moments. When the world slows down, they still picture you laughing. They still hear your voice saying their name. And then they shake it off, remind themselves, it's over. But their heart never got the memo. There's something cruel about time. It moves on without asking if you're ready. And now, months later, people assume they've healed. But grief doesn't follow calendars. It follows memory. And every time they cross paths with a place you once stood, their chest tightens. It's not longing. It's residue, the leftover ache of something that mattered too much to forget. They've learned to fill their time. New hobbies, new friends, a new version of themselves. but even their growth carries your fingerprints. You influence their music taste, their way of speaking, the way they pause before saying something deep. They carry your presence, like an accent they can't unlearn. You're gone, but still there, in subtle ways, in quiet gestures, in the way they still turn their head whenever they hear your laugh. Even when it's not you, they tell themselves it was meant to end, that not every love story needs a forever, that sometimes the point of love is to awaken something inside you, not to stay. But knowing that doesn't make it easier, because what they lost wasn't just a person, it was the version of themselves. They were with you, that unguarded, open, innocent self, the one who still believed that love was enough. They miss that version of themselves almost as much as they miss you. They still talk to you, in their heads sometimes, not the real you, the version of you that lives in memory, the one that listens, the one that understands, the one that never left. They tell you about their day, their fears, their small victories, and then they remember you're not really there. You're just a ghost in the space where love used to live. But even ghosts can bring comfort, and yours still does. They act fine, yes, but fine doesn't mean healed. Fine means functioning through the ache. They've gotten good at it, at smiling through nostalgia, at laughing while remembering, at being okay while still broken. They've made peace with pretending, because that's what life demands. The world doesn't slow down for broken hearts, so they keep moving, not because they've let go, but because standing still hurts even more. They've tried to talk about it once, to explain how they feel, but people don't really get it. They say things like, time heals all wounds, as if time alone could erase the kind of connection that carved itself into your bones. So now, they don't talk about you. They carry you silently. They store you somewhere safe, between nostalgia and acceptance, somewhere private, somewhere sacred. They've stopped waiting for closure because they finally understood that closure isn't something you get, it's something you decide. They've accepted that you'll always be the story that shaped them the most. And maybe that's okay. Maybe not every heartbreak needs to be fixed. Some just need to be honored. They've changed, not in ways the world can see, but in ways that matter. They listen differently now. They love more carefully. They notice the fragile things they used to overlook. Pain has softened them. Loss has matured them. Grief has made them gentle. So while losing you broke something in them, it also built something: depth, understanding, humanity. They still think about you sometimes, not with longing, but with gratitude, because for a moment, they got to experience something real, something rare. And though it didn't last, it meant. And in a world of empty connections, meaning is gold. That's why, no matter how fine they act, part of them will always belong to what you were. Because some loves don't fade. They evolve. They shift form. They become memory, become music, become silence that feels full. They act fine. And maybe one day, they truly will be. But for now, fine is enough. Fine is survival. Fine is courage. In the face of what they can't forget. Because losing you didn't just break something in them. It revealed how deeply they could love. And that realization will follow them forever. They act fine. And maybe now, it's not even an act. Maybe they've learned how to live with it, how to breathe beside the ache, instead of beneath it. But don't mistake acceptance for indifference, because deep healing doesn't erase what was. It simply softens its edges. You still live in their story, just no longer as a wound. Now, you exist as a whisper, something they feel, but no longer chase. There was a time when everything reminded them of you. Now, only some things do. A song, a scent, the light at a certain hour. The pain has lost its sharpness. It's round now, quiet, almost gentle. It doesn't slice anymore. It hums, and though they've built a life around it, they still carry it like a scar. They've made peace with. They touch it sometimes, not to reopen it, but to remember how far they've come. In the beginning, they thought healing meant forgetting. That one day, your face would stop, appearing behind their eyelids. But that's not how it works. Healing isn't about erasure. It's about integration. You became a part of their emotional DNA. You shaped how they see love, how they measure safety, how they guard their softness. And even though that sounds heavy, it's also beautiful because it means they felt something real, something worth missing. For a long time, they carried the weight of what if. What if they had said more, stayed longer, loved better? But life taught them that closure isn't a door you find, it's one you build. And slowly, piece by piece, they built it. They wrote your ending. In the way they started again. In the way they woke up, even when it still hurt. In the way they smiled, when their chest felt tight. Every day they kept going. They were rewriting the story of what losing you meant. They used to replay the last moment with you. Every word, every silence, every look. Now they don't. Not because they don't remember, but because they no longer need to. Pain loses its power when it's finally understood, and they understand it now. They see that what you had wasn't meant to last, but it was meant to shape them. You were the chapter that taught them how deep love can go, how much a heart can stretch before it breaks, and how somehow it still beats after. They didn't know it at first, but losing you would be the beginning of finding themselves, because sometimes the only way we meet who we really are is by watching everything we thought we were fall apart. They started noticing small things again. The smell of rain, the warmth of sunlight on their skin, the sound of laughter that isn't forced. Healing didn't arrive as an explosion. It came quietly, like dawn creeping through a closed curtain. It came when they stopped, waiting to feel better, and started choosing to live anyway. When they stopped comparing and started accepting. When they stopped wishing for who you were and started thanking what you meant. There's still a piece of you inside them, but now it glows instead of bleeds. You became a memory that brings peace instead of pain, a ghost that comforts instead of haunts. And though they'll never love anyone exactly the same, they'll love better, clearer, with boundaries, with awareness, because your absence taught them what presence really means. They don't talk about you much anymore, not because they've forgotten, but because they don't have to. Your name doesn't live in their throat now. It lives in their growth, in the way they show up, in the way they protect their peace, in the way they refuse to settle for almosts. You were the storm that showed them how to build shelter. And now, they live differently, freer, calmer, still tender, but wiser for it. They've met new people. Some made them laugh again. Some reminded them of you. Some didn't at all. They've learned not to chase the same feeling, but to recognize the same truth. Connection, warmth, understanding. Those things aren't exclusive to one person, but still, what you shared was singular. And that realization doesn't hurt anymore. It humbles them. They know now that love isn't always meant to last, but it's always meant to matter. Every once in a while, when the night is too quiet and their guard slips, they'll think of you, and there will be a soft smile, a quiet ache, a moment of gratitude for what was. No resentment, no longing, just peace. That's how you know they've healed. When remembering you feels like holding a warm photograph, not reopening an old wound. They act fine, but this time, it's not a performance. It's real. They laugh now, for themselves. They rest now, without guilt. They wake up, not hoping for something, but appreciating what's already there. Because grief, when fully felt, turns into depth, and that depth has become their quiet superpower. They used to think heartbreak made them weaker. Now they see it made them more alive. Because the heart that's been broken is the heart that finally knows how much it can hold. They understand things differently now. Love, loss, patience, time. They see how everything connects, how nothing is random. You weren't a mistake. You were a mirror, a moment that revealed who they truly are. And in that sense, they'll never lose you. They've outgrown the need for closure, outgrown the bitterness, outgrown the sadness. Now, when they think of you, it's quiet, soft, almost sacred, because some people don't stay in your life. They stay in your soul. And you're one of those people. If you saw them now, you'd notice it. The stillness, the calm, the grace in the way they move. It wasn't always there. They earned it. Through nights of breaking, through days of pretending, through the slow alchemy of turning pain into wisdom. They act fine now, not because they're hiding the hurt, but because they've learned to live beyond it. They no longer fear love. They fear losing themselves. That's the real transformation. Not learning how to love again, but learning how to love without disappearing. They've built a self that can hold both affection and independence, devotion and dignity. And that's what heartbreak taught them. That love is not about ownership, it's about awareness. They don't need an apology anymore. They don't need to be remembered. They don't even need to know if you still think of them. They've made peace with not knowing. Because some stories aren't meant to continue, they're meant to complete you. And yours did. Perfectly, painfully, beautifully. They act fine now. But beneath that calm, there's a quiet strength, the kind that only comes from walking through fire and learning to dance in the smoke. You were the fire, they were the ashes, and now they're the light. They may never say it aloud, but losing you was also finding themselves. And maybe that's the kindest ending love can give. Not a forever, but a becoming. Because those something in them broke. The day you left, something else was born. Something wiser, something truer, something whole. They act fine. But now, fine means something different. It's no longer a mask. It's a choice, a way of moving forward, without needing to hide or explain, because they've learned that being fine doesn't mean being untouched. It means carrying the memory and walking with it anyway. There was a time when they thought they'd never get here, when the thought of you was too sharp to face, but somewhere between missing you and forgiving you, they made peace with the ending. Not the kind that erases, the kind that integrates, the kind that says, yes, it hurt. Yes, it changed me. And yes, I'm still grateful. They stopped chasing better, stopped searching for new, and started focusing on real moments, real people, real feelings. Because losing you taught them the difference between intensity and intimacy. They don't need fireworks anymore. They crave warmth, consistency, stillness, the kind of love that doesn't burn. It glows. And when they look back at you now, they don't see a mistake. They see meaning. You were a lesson, a teacher, a mirror reflecting all the parts they needed to meet inside themselves. The pain? It wasn't punishment. It was direction. It showed them how deeply they could love and how fiercely they could rise. They don't resent you. Not anymore. Because resentment is still a form of attachment. And they've released that too. Now, there's only softness, a quiet respect for what was, a silent gratitude for how it shaped them. Because if love was the fire, then loss was the forge, and both were necessary to make them who they are now. They live differently these days. Not louder, but clearer. They listen more, speak slower, love with eyes open. They've learned that peace isn't found in closure. It's found in understanding. And once you understand, you stop needing to prove, to fix, to hold on. You simply let life unfold, trusting that everything lost finds a new form somewhere else. You changed them, but they changed too. They're not who they were when you left. They're softer now, but stronger too, more protective of their energy, more selective with their heart, more at home within themselves. Because after losing you, they had to rebuild, and in rebuilding, they discovered the version of themselves that doesn't break anymore. They bend. There's a quiet power in being able to miss someone and still move forward, to love without ownership, to remember without pain, to see beauty in what's gone. That's what healing really is. Not forgetting, but transforming. You became a story, a memory, a gentle echo, and they became whole again. Around that echo, sometimes they still think about what might have been, but it's no longer a wound, just a window. They look through it, smile, and keep walking. Because some people don't come to stay, they come to awaken. And you awaken something they didn't know was sleeping. A depth, a courage, a capacity for love that will never be the same again. They act fine, but for the first time, it's the truth. Fine means they can breathe again, laugh again, trust again. They've stopped needing to be over it. Now they simply are. And if you ever cross their mind, it won't be with sadness. It'll be with peace. Because some stories end in heartbreak, but the best ones end in growth. And this one, the one that broke them, became the one that built them. So if you ever wonder whether they're okay now, the answer is yes. Not the kind of yes that hides behind a smile, the kind of yes that comes from surviving everything they thought they couldn't. They act fine because they are, finally, truly, whole. And maybe that's what love was always meant to do. Not promise forever, but prepare you for the life that comes after. And you, the one watching this, the one who felt every word, maybe you see yourself in them. Maybe you've been pretending to be fine too. And if you have, that's okay. Because one day, you'll wake up and realize the pretending has stopped. You'll realize you don't ache the same way. You'll realize you've changed. And that change is the proof you've healed. Until then, take your time. You're allowed to grieve. You're allowed to grow. You're allowed to miss them and still move forward. Because healing doesn't mean the story ends. It means you finally become the person the pain was trying to reveal. And if this spoke to you, don't keep it to yourself. Someone out there is acting fine right now when they're really breaking inside. Share this with them. Let them know they're not alone. Because sometimes all someone needs is to hear the words they couldn't say out loud. They act fine, but deep down, something in them still remembers. Something in them still loves. Something in them still hopes. And maybe that's what makes us human. The beautiful, terrible, endless capacity to keep loving, even after it breaks us.